Right, so we've heard a little bit from our governor more recently, like last week. She talked about inflation being homegrown. And, you know, not traditionally, but over the last 2 years, we've been talking about inflation having been imported from other countries and supply chain driven inflation. She's now sort of suggesting, and I don't really know where she got the data from, but that inflation is homegrown. In other words, we're all spending too much because we got too much to spend, perhaps. I'm not sure exactly what she means. I want to touch on that. The last day or so from her digs in wherever she is overseas at the moment, she spoke about that. I presume her field agents have told her this, that whilst Australians with mortgages are unhappy with the Reserve Bank putting interest rates up, which is a no-brainer, they are coping quite well. Now, it's not what I'm hearing, and you know I'm exposed to 500,000 borrowers. It's not what I'm hearing. It's not what I'm hearing in the street. It's not what people email me, DM me, text me, tell me when they see me in the street. It's not what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That's my field agency work. What are you hearing, mate?
My field agency work, if we can call it that, in the last month, I've been travelling around to Perth, Sydney, Melbourne, a number of different times, depending on who I'm seeing a range of big corporations, little corporations, real estate businesses, tech companies, talking about the economy. And none of them, I repeat, none are saying that conditions are good. Some of them saying things are okay, particularly those associated with a bit of artificial intelligence and technology. Yeah, businesses still buying machinery, equipment, technology. They have to keep up. So
because they have to.
They have to, because that's just business. So they're doing okay. So they're doing it not strong, because of course some companies are using that as a discretionary cut in their spending. So we're hearing the banks are sacking people now.
Yeah, because they're going to use
because the economy is weak.
They're going to use technology to replace people.
Correct.
Because it's cheaper.
Correct. Like bank branches. Who goes to a bank branch with a check? We all go tap, 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 and every bill's paid and money goes. I don't know how you do it, but you do it. And so therefore we're going to have notes and coins probably disappearing in the next, 5 years or something like that. So the businesses that are doing it tough are doing it very tough. Those associated with retail, discretionary spending, so the high-end items, they're the ones that are under a fair bit of pressure, because we consumers, and it came up in yesterday's retail sales numbers. So it's always interesting when an anecdote turns into hard data. Yesterday we had the hard data for October. Retail sales minus 0.2%. They're lower now than they were at the end of 2022, so 11 months of weakness, because we consumers aren't silly. We are responding to the fact that prices are going up by more than our wages, although that's starting to change. We're responding to these rate hikes. Gosh, are we ever? And even the small business sector, who usually use their personal finances to fund their overdrafts and things like that, they're paying higher interest rates. So summarising it, from what I'm hearing and even starting to see in the hard data on the economy, the Bureau of Statistics, hard data on retail sales, building approvals, this sort of stuff, the economy is weak, unambiguously.
So how do we reconcile her commentary with what we're hearing, seeing and reading?
I'm not sure, Mark, to be honest. I'm not meaning to be unkind or rude. I just don't see it in the data. I looked at other things that we don't get a lot of data on, like government spending. And while there is some government spending, I looked at the Reserve Bank forecast that came out with their November statement on monetary policy. What was that? Just 3 weeks ago. Because they break down their forecast into household spending, dwelling investment, government demand. Government demand in the next year is only going to be growing by 0.9%. It's not really strong. The government's still repairing the budget from the COVID, big deficits and debt and this sort of thing. Fair enough. Maybe they should be doing more. I'm sure we'll talk about that a bit later. But they're doing something. And even the cancellation of some infrastructure spending because there's a sort of squeeze in the economy, that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's the government side of the economy. Where she might be getting her intelligence and information from is the fact that the export sector is still doing pretty well. The iron ore price is still $130 a tonne. Wow. So the mining companies are making a truckload of money. Coal volumes, they've come off a bit, but we're still exporting coal, natural gas, all those commodities that Australia's got lots of and we export a lot of. That does filter through to the economy. Now, obviously, if you're in that industry, you're doing really well. So it might just be the fact that the export sector is giving us a bit of a kick along, even though the domestic economy, when we look at consumption, construction, household spending, and even government spending are either neutral or weak.
So it sort of could be the knock-on effect of a Australian resource prosperity dividend sort of thing. Like, I'm in West Australia.
WA, and look at WA house prices. They're the others are starting to slow off a little bit. WA Perth is still booming. WA's got the lowest unemployment rate in Australia.
Newcastle's close.
Yes,
but also,
indeed.
Also a resource.
Resources coal, yes, indeed. So anything that's linked to the resources sector, the energy and iron ore, those sort of places are doing really, really well. And it's interesting that Victoria, for example, that doesn't have a mining sector to speak of course, it's, just doesn't. There's the economy that's arguably the weakest, one of the weakest at the moment. So I get that might be how the RBA and Michelle Bullock as governor are analysing this economy. They're getting good stories of strength in the export sector. Great. I love, good on Australia. We've got a lot of that stuff in the ground. Let's dig it up and sell it. Great. But it's this domestic consumer household sector is where the pain is.